member video review, whatever you want to call it, you are correct. Goes by many names. And we are joined here by the one and only Jon Holling. And we are going to go through some awesome member videos today. I did preview a lot of these today because I just wanted to see them, and they're wonderful. So I'm excited to jump into this. Jon, thank you for taking the time.
I am excited to see the videos. It doesn't seem fair that you get a preview of all these videos and I see them cold turkey.
I wanted to make sure they're all clear
All right.
and they're working, and I was just doing my due diligence. So I
Okay, that's
apologize.
good. One needs to do it. So
Yeah,
I'm glad you're taking on that responsibility. I'm excited to see everybody's videos.
yeah, wonderful. How are you, Jon? One thing we did just cover before we went live is that Jon, here in a couple weeks, will be riding at Kentucky. So how are you feeling about that? That's coming up here.
It's exciting. I try not to think too much about it, and I try to pretend I'm not superstitious, but I'm kind of superstitious, so I've been ignoring it. But I know it's coming because I am short with Jen and Caden when I shouldn't be, and I wake up every morning and my teeth hurt from clenching my jaw. So I feel like I'm probably about right.
It's on the horizon. I
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. Well, consider a mouth guard for the teeth grinding. And for the being short with Jen and Caden, I don't know. I don't have a solution for that.
Yeah, they just need to be more tolerant of me.
Right. You're an athlete.
Yeah.
It's part of the territory.
Yeah, I shouldn't have to change my behavior.
Right. Yes. They should
Thank you.
they should change theirs. I'm glad we've reached this really really productive resolution.
Yeah, yeah. Seems fair.
Awesome. Well, the Ride IQ group is going to be cheering so loud for you. So you'll be hearing, I mean, from all over the world. So you'll be hearing
Well,
cheers from everywhere.
I will just say this, assuming everything stays on track and I am actually at Kentucky, I do hope to see a bunch of Ride IQers there. So if you guys see me wandering around, even if I look grumpy, because sometimes I get like resting angry face,
Resting
we'll
bitch
call it.
face.
Yeah. If I have that, it's probably fake. So don't be shy and come up and say hello.
Perfect. Well, yeah, power through that RBF on Jon, and he'll be wonderful. So it's
Yes,
going to be
I'll
great.
be nice.
Cool. Well, let's jump into the videos if you're down.
Let's go.
Okay, so the first up is Kim, and let me get Kim's video. I've got two videos from Kim, so we'll start with her doing show jumping, and then we'll jump to her doing cross country. Um, and I've got a lot of info from Kim. Sorry, my first one is always going to take an extra second. We're doing this. Okay, you can see that, correct, Jon?
Yes.
Okay. Kim is riding Royal, her 14-year-old Irish sport horse mare, and we've seen her before on a prior video review. This is their training level round at Pine Top in March. She's been focusing on turning with the outside aids to keep Royal's body straight. Royal is very forward and naturally wants to jump a bit rampy, but they're making progress, especially in stadium. Kim specifically noted the turn from fence 5 to 6. She initially started turning with her inside rein, then caught herself and used her outside aids to keep Royal straight to fence 6, which she was really proud of. She also mentioned that not long ago, her brain would shut down in stadium due to nerves, so this felt like a big step forward. Kim is looking for general feedback, and she's noting for the second video that Royal is a very enthusiastic cross-country horse, and Kim has also given us a cross-country clip to view after this.
Great. So the first thing I'll say is that this particular arena is one of the most difficult rings to jump in. This is at Pine Top, and you can't appreciate in this video how much of a hill that arena is set on. So particularly that last line, I think, even though you had a couple rails down through there, I would be thinking that had a lot to do with that side of the ring is really hilly. So this bottom side where Kim is now is pretty flat and level. And then as we come up here where she is now, this starts getting pretty significant slope on it. Now, here I think in time, as this connection gets a little better, a little softer, you're going to be able to make more adjustments and be able to make minor corrections to that first double where you had the vertical down. It's great that you're using the outside rein, and that is absolutely the right thing to do to make sure you're turning the shoulders. But with that, I think you've lost a little bit of the lateral suppleness, and you're going to be like, come on, you said to keep it straight. Now I got to keep it bent. The reality is you need to keep your horse straight, keep the shoulders tracking underneath you, but you're going to need to eventually be able to also keep a little better softness over your horse's top line so that in those combinations, you don't have those rails down. Because really, I know you had the last rail, but really the issues with this round were in the combinations, right? Where you need a really elastic horse, a horse that is going to be supple and over its top line. And that doesn't necessarily mean round. I try not to draw my horses into this too much, but if you've seen either of my two horses that I have going right now at the top level, one of them is Kurt, Fernhill Copain, and he's a good one for you to watch because he actually goes really open in his throat latch with his nose poking out at the fence, but he's pretty soft through his body. That's still a work in progress, and I'm working on the same things you are, where he's got to be straight, so your horse has to be straight, but there has to be some elasticity in the contact, in the connection, and I think he's a good horse for you to look at so that you don't get the impression that what I'm saying is he has to be round and on the bit. He doesn't need to be round and on the bit, but your horse needs to be a little more elastic through his jaw, through his top line, so that he can be softer through his back, so that when you come into that vertical in and out at the top of the ring there, and you're going to be a little bit deep, you did a good job supporting him, but he went a little stiff. He drew you into the first fence a little deep, and then you can't really fault him for having that rail down. So it's going to be trying to work this out with how can you keep him straight through his body, not turning on the inside rein and overbending, which you absolutely cannot do, but still have him soft through his top line. So some things that I would work on at home would be starting this with like Cavaletti's pulls on the ground and seeing, can you keep him straight through his body while still elastic through his top line over pulls on the ground. And then you graduate that to up on the Cavaletti blocks, and then you can do it over some smaller jumps. Working it like on some serpentines would be a great exercise. You could start it even on a circle, like a 20-meter circle right, a 20-meter circle left, but I think you'll probably graduate beyond that fairly quickly. So what I would do is like set up an S-bend type fence of 3 jumps where you could jump one at the end of the arena, sort of on the center line, and then turn back to another one, kind of like what would be the equivalent of X in your jump ring, and then turn back and jump one down near D or G on the other side, so that you can practice that ability to make the turns and keep his shoulders straight while still keeping some elasticity through his top line, keep him soft in his back. The other thing that I would work on position-wise for you, when I watched that video, I felt like your lower leg was just a little bit out in front of you. You were really good. You were sitting nice and upright and tall without having your shoulders back behind the vertical. But I felt like your lower leg was a little bit out in front of you, which then means your seat is going to get a little bit heavy. And if he gets a little stiff or wants to run you up to the fences and get a little deep, that is going to be a very dangerous place for you to be, where he could flatten his back even a little bit more. So I would play around a little bit with your stirrup length. You might try, and I'm not saying it's the answer because I'd have to see it once you play with it, but you might try going a hole, maybe 2 holes longer in your show jump length to see if you can get your leg down his side and not out in front of you so much. So when I go show jumping, I am 2 holes longer than I go cross country. Cross country, you want that lower leg a little bit in front of you, a little bit defensive, so you can gallop up to the fences, and then you can get up out of the saddle and be really clear with your seat over top of your horse. And then you can get a little cross country defensive, I call it, when you need it. with that lower leg out in front of you. But in the show jumping, you want a little longer leg so you can wrap your leg around your horse, and then you can stay right over that center of balance with its, again, remember, it's supposed to be a straight line from your hip down to your heel when you're sitting in your jump saddle. Your shoulders can be a little in front of that line, but it really should be seat or hip and then straight down to your heel. And what I see is hip, and then your heels a little bit out in front of it there. And so then you get just that little bit defensive sometimes, which can contribute to this as well. So I think I would play around with smaller fences, serpentining, and then I would just experiment. I might be wrong, right? I'm watching one video clip here today, but I think if you had a hole longer in your stirrup, maybe two, that might just help you correct your leg position, and then that's going to put you in a little nicer balance to be able to work that top line and get his back to come up underneath you a little bit better.
That's awesome. I'm going to bring up her cross-country video now. And we can watch this now, too.
Kevin Royal, nicely over the container at 14.
And this, I will say, as difficult as that show jump ring is, this right here is the reason you go to Pine Top. They have one of the best cross-country courses I have ever ridden. It is just so much fun and so good for the horses. I love that. It's so direct. That looks like that's a corner coming out of the water. He didn't hesitate at all. He looked totally rideable. And that is what you want. Maybe we can watch it one more time just because I feel like I should. But what I see here is more like going to be giving you a pat on the back than making any big corrections, because what I see is a horse that's forward, taking you to the fences, but he looks elastic. He looks happy. He looks rideable. He looks like if you said, I need you to move up, he would have moved up and he wouldn't have flattened on you. He looks like if you said, I need you to wait, he would have waited and he wouldn't have paused or hesitated. He just looks truly happy doing his job out there. And interestingly, actually much rounder than you were able to create in the show jumping. So I think that's just something to think about. How can you get that soft top line, soft connection in the show jumping? Now, that's a really easy thing to say, and sometimes it's a hard thing to create because the jumps are coming at you way quicker in the show jump ring, and it starts to build. So I think that connection, though, that you have in the cross country is kind of the feeling through his back that we're going to try to create in the show jumping, hopefully with a little slower canter and a little longer stirrup, and I think you're going to get it. But that looks like a really fun horse on cross country. You're right. He looks like the boss.
I love that. Absolutely. That looked just like an awesome cross-country round from the fences that we saw. This next one is Gia, and my video is showing me sideways. Let me see if I share this.
Just tip your computer.
Yeah, everyone just turn your head to the side. Well, this is why I previewed them, and I promise when I previewed it, it wasn't sideways.
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm going to work on Gia's, and we're going to move on to the next person in the meantime.
Okay.
Let me pull up. Hopefully Victoria is also not sideways. She's not. Okay. We have Victoria here. Okay. Victoria is on major, and this is their first ever cross-country school, and Victoria's first time schooling cross-country in over a year. The clip begins after they had already jumped 10 plus fences successfully. Major only looked at the very first fence, and after that they were moving well. This was also Victoria's first time cantering up and down a bank, which is why she asked for that portion to be filmed. After that, she attempted a ditch, feeling confident, but Major stopped, despite feeling like he had it from a stride out. She then added a stick for encouragement and experienced a moment of getting left behind. A similar situation occurred going the other direction, and Major also showed some lack of confidence going downhill, which appears in the final clip. Victoria would love insight on training young or first-time cross-country horses over new obstacles, what she could have done differently to better set Major up for success, whether she may have been too harsh or how Jon would support a horse in these moments. And she noted that her focus in the moment was simply getting him over the fence, but is very open to feedback on improving her approach.
Okay, so the first thing I will say that is, kind of the most obvious thing, which I'm sure you're aware, is when you get to that ditch, you definitely want to be a little bit in the back seat if you think you have a horse that might hesitate at the ditches. So both times when he stopped, you ended up tipping forward. Now, should he have gone? Maybe, but he's a young green horse, so you can't be surprised that he's going to question it. I love his reaction, though, to the stick in that you just touched him with it one time. I think it was an appropriate amount of stick to use there. And he went right down and jumped it the next time. Now, there are definitely some ways that I think you can help him understand the questions before you show it to him, and he falters there and has to stop. So when I'm schooling a ditch or a Liverpool, what I like to do is walk parallel to the ditch. So I walk basically with, let's say, my horse's right side facing the ditch. I'm going to watch this jump here. There we go. That's beautiful. He's got it now. So the thing that I would change here and how I would school it would be you walk your horse parallel to the face of the ditch. You have them slightly flexioned away from the ditch. So if the ditch is on your right side, your horse is slightly flexed to the left. You're walking along that front edge of the ditch. You do that with your horse's right side facing the ditch, and then you walk around to the other side of the ditch, same thing, right side facing the ditch. It doesn't matter the first time you do it if your horse is right up next to the ditch or if your horse is 6 feet away from the ditch. You just repeat it. So like here, I would walk along that trickaner. I'd walk right where I'm assuming your coach or your helper is, right through where they are, walk along the log, and then I would turn around the log and I would go back up the other way. So I would do that repeatedly on the right rein. What did I say originally? So we'll say, I think I said left rein. So right side facing the ditch. So it would be left rein. And I would do that repeatedly until my horse was able to comfortably walk along the ditch and feel like he was relaxed about it. He wasn't questioning it. He wasn't worried if I was going to walk him into the ditch. And then I would turn around and I would do it on the other side with the other side of my horse up against the ditch, horse flexioned away from the ditch. And that part is important because when you point your horse at something like a ditch, and you can do this with any jump, a log, a table, a bank, anything, when you point them directly at it on a 90-degree angle, that is a lot of pressure. Your horse has basically two options: go to it and jump it, or stop. And I guess you could then say also they could run out, but then they're changing the line to the fence, right? And they're releasing pressure by running by it. So it's a ton of pressure to put on a horse to say, we're just going to go up there first time and do this. Now, doing logs and banks, it looks like you're pretty proficient at that. But when you have something new like water, like ditches, or in the show jump ring like a Liverpool, this sort of walking around it, parallel to it, slight flexion away so that the horse has a little bit of pressure from your outside leg, but not pointing them directly at it so that you're not dealing with that you must go situation, but just letting them get comfortable in their body where they are is a really good way to introduce something new like a ditch. And I will tell you, when I used to do clinics in my 20s, I would line everybody up like you guys did, and I would send them down to the ditch, and then inevitably one or two horses would stop. We would get one horse over the ditch. I'd have to tell the rider to smack him with the stick, and then maybe one horse wouldn't get over the ditch, and I'd have to have them smack it harder with the stick, or I'd have to get a lunge whip and sort of chase it up from behind with a lunge whip. When I started doing it this way of letting them walk around the ditches, it feels like it takes longer, right? Even as a clinician, I've got 4 people in a group and I'm making them walk around the ditch and I'm watching the clock and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have another group in an hour and a half. This is going to take so much time. It has saved me hours of that. Hours of horses not wanting to jump a ditch, hours of having to be harsh and mean to horses. And by the way, I don't think you were harsh and mean to this horse. You were not over the top. I didn't see you beat it. I didn't see you go crazy. I think knowing what you knew, you used an appropriate amount of stick, right? Your helper hands you your stick here, you give him one smack, and away he goes. This is a very cool horse. But when you go next time, I would play with this and see, could you just walk around it, get him comfortable with it, and then let him pop over it. The other thing that I would do, if I had one that really struggled with it, and I haven't done a ton, didn't initially do a ton of this either, is put him on a rope. And you don't have to be like Tick Maynard or Elisa Wallace to be able to lead a horse around and let them pop over jumps. You don't even really necessarily have to lunge them. So I have a new little 4-year-old horse named Louie, and Louie has just started jumping. And I took him up because he's such a good guy, and we did this exercise to a set of steps. And he was really good walking up, but he was so confused to walk down the steps. And I put my leg on and I touched him once with the stick, and he kicked out at me, and I thought, you know what? I'm 49 years old and I don't want to fall off a month before Kentucky, so I'm going to do something different, something I haven't done before. So I got off, I unhooked one side of his reins, I left the other rein on because I was out in the back of my property and I didn't want to have to go get a halter and a rope. And I just walked him behind me up the step, and then I turned around and walked him behind me down the step, and he popped off the step and he was happy and he understood it, because I think a lot of times having the rider on their back does change their balance, and especially if they're new to the sport, new to equestrian, or just young, they sometimes get confused or lose their balance because they're trying to balance us. So again, your horse dealt with this really well, but the question you asked was, how would I deal with this in the future? Those are the ways I would deal with it. I would do the walking around it thing, and I think for your horse, that's probably all you're going to have to do. But actually putting them on a rope, it can be the carrot stick and the rope halter with the knots on it and the big Pirelli rope with the buckle, but it also can be a lead rope. It also can be a lunge line. It's all the same stuff, right? It's just, what do you have in your barn to make it work? And I think working them from the ground over some of these jumps is actually a really helpful way. One, it's way less risk for you. And two, it actually is easier for the horses to understand it. And I've done this with really experienced horses. I have a student's horse here who's been struggling dropping off banks into water. So I just got out there with it and I let it into the water in my welly boots, and it came in behind me and dropped in, and now it's going into the water quite happily on its own. And we didn't have to pressure it. We didn't have to smack it. We didn't have to beat it. And I'll be honest, part of this has been all of this new social media stuff and social license and all that, where you can't get after them with a stick. And when that first started happening, I thought to myself, like, how am I going to make these horses jump? If they stop, you need to smack them and make them do it. And then I started thinking, well, maybe there's a better way. And so I started paying attention and listening to my friends like Tick and Elisa and thinking, how could I incorporate some of this into what I do? And it's been hugely helpful with all of my horses. They understand it better, and I don't have to be mean. And I don't like to be mean to my horses if I don't have to be. And if you teach it to them, if it's a good horse and it's in the right sport, you don't usually have to be mean. It's very rare that you have to be really hard on them. So that's the stuff I would work on. That said, that's a really nice horse. He got pointed at the ditch. He questioned it. You gave him one touch with a stick and he popped over it. I'd be really excited about him. I did see at the end of the video, you were jumping the last log, maybe two, and he got a little, so he might have gotten a little tired, or maybe you got a little tired, or maybe just got a little overwhelmed. But it looked to me at the end of the course like you actually needed just a little more leg, a little more pace to keep him out in front of you, and make sure you're having fun with it, not feeling like you have to protect it, but gallop on down there and have a great time. That's a really cool horse that you'd ride really well, so congratulations, and keep us posted on how it goes.
Absolutely. And I love that you're taking kind of this new transition in the sport in stride and adjusting your process. And I think that, yeah, we're all going to be better for it. So it's really cool to hear that. And Victoria, there are actually several, I would just check to make sure that I was right on this, but we have at least 3 tracks on the app called Introducing a Ditch, one of which is called Introducing a Cross Country Ditch, and it's with John. And he kind of walks through exactly what he just said about going kind of parallel to the ditch. And then there's also a video with Kyle doing, like, showing that exact mechanism as well. And then Prue Barrett from Australia also does her own variety on introducing a ditch, and they're all really similar. So take a listen to those, take a watch to Kyle's video, and then with banks as well. Jon also covered introducing a bank, and so stuff like that is also within the library. So definitely be sure to check those out. But I agree, Major is super cute, and I can't wait for an update. Perfect. Well, I did figure out Gia's video, so let's go back to Gia.
Sent it to the
And-
tech department.
Yeah, my tech department was on call, and so they figured it out. Don't worry.
Perfect.
We will be doing this a little differently, but I think it'll still work. You can see this, right?
Yes.
I'll try to make it bigger. I wonder if that will work.
Yep.
Actually, I might need to make it just slightly bigger. Here, I'm gonna do this. 1 second. Just give me one moment while my tech department figure this out. Okay. We can see this, right, Jon?
Yes.
Okay, this is Gia and Blue. Gia has owned Blue for about 4 months. Gia is 12 years old and has been riding for 5 years and is the youngest rider in Rebecca's program. She is very determined and is currently learning how to connect with Blue and understand his buttons. Her main questions are around riding in a way that allows Blue to use his body rather than just going around with his head in the air, and developing more consistent connection. She is open to any additional tips or feedback.
All right. Well, this is a very cute little horse, and that's impressive that you're 12 years old and you've been riding for 5 years. Well done. That means you started riding when you were 7, and yeah, I had to count that on my fingers. That's really good. So I love how much, could the horse be rounder? Yeah, for sure. Blue could be a little rounder. But I thought, Gia, you actually have very good hands. You do a good job keeping your elbows soft, that you can see the elbow kind of moving with the rhythm of Blue's canter. And interestingly, after you jumped those jumps there, now look at how round and connected Blue is. So part of this is probably due to the fact that he's got to be really in front of your leg to be able to go into your hand, to be able to stay round and soft and connected and all those things that you want to do. I know that the answer I'm about to give you, which is the right answer, is not the answer you want, which is this is going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of hours in the saddle to get better at this, but your basics are all there and are all very good. And honestly, I think for a jumping round, I don't know that it needs to be a ton more round. Now, if that's the canter that you have when you're doing your dressage test, sure, then he does need to be a little bit more round. So some things that I would work on as far as thinking about where my canter needs to be for dressage would be working on 20-meter circles. That was really good through the bounces. Would be spiraling in, spiraling out, working on lateral suppleness through leg yields. But as you're working down there on your circles, you do a great job of getting him back round and soft and connected. And then he does naturally want to jump with his nose up and out. I think one thing that some people don't understand or notice is that no matter how round a horse naturally is, in the last stride before they take off, every single horse lifts its head and pokes its nose out at the jump. I don't care what level it is, what horse it is, they do not jump on the bit. And when I say on the bit, I don't mean on the aids, because if they're good, they should jump on the aids in connection, but they all have to raise their head and their neck and point their nose up at the fence to be able to get their shoulder up, right? To rotate that shoulder through, sit down behind, and push off. So don't get too hard on yourself about the shape when you're jumping. I think it's very good. So we're going to just set that aside now. Now, if we go to your flat work, I'm just going to assume that what you're talking about is when you're working on the flat where you need this to be better. I would do, like I said, spiral in, spiral out. I would do leg yields. The thing that actually gets missed the most, and I work on in a lot of my lessons, is transitions. So especially when we're in an indoor ring, I remember this from when I was your age, and we're riding on our own, and it's after school or before school. There's a lot of riding around in the wintertime. I'm just going to trot each way. I'm going to canter each way. My feet are frozen, and I'm going to get out of the ring and go put my horse away. And what happens is, one, not a super productive ride because you're trying to rush through it even when you don't want to because it's cold and it gets boring in an indoor sometimes. But the other thing that happens is we forget to do transitions. So it doesn't really, as far as your horse's ability to stay soft and connected and in front of your leg, it doesn't do a lot for you to go in and trot 10 minutes straight doing figure of eights and just kind of trotting around, bending, suppling. Even with lots of changes of directions, because you're not doing enough transitions. So when I get on a horse to try to get them soft through their back, which is what you're talking about, I will literally do 20 trot to canter transitions on a circle, maybe 15 each way, but I'd like to say 20. I might be slightly exaggerating, but doing a lot of trot to canter, doing a lot of trot to walk, just a ton of transitions. So my mare, Zelda, she can get really behind the leg. And if I get intense and am like, this has got to be better, and I start really trying to ride her hard, I forget about doing the transitions. And then at the end of the ride, at best, she is in a lather, I'm in a lather, and she's kind of in the right shape, but my hands are wide and I'm pulling her head down and around. If I take my time and I remember to do my transitions, which is kind of like eating your vegetables, if I remember to do my transitions and I come out and I warm her up and trot, and then I go up the long side, and sometimes, like if I'm in a dressage ring, I'll do a trot, walk, trot transition at every other letter as I go around the ring. Just trot around, walk, and then trot on, and then walk at the next letter, and then trot. And just do that, and don't really even worry, is it a perfect transition? It doesn't really matter. I just need to get her to understand that we're going to walk, and then we're going to trot, and then we're going to walk, and then we're going to trot. And eventually, in time, she stops bracing. She's better to my leg. She gets softer. And it's, honestly, it's like painting by numbers. It is so easy. You don't even have to think about it. It doesn't take talent. It doesn't take ability. It doesn't really even take that much knowledge. I'm just repeating this transition until Zelda starts to think, well, he's going to tell me to trot in a second. So then she keeps her hind legs up underneath her, and she goes off into trot. And I'm like, oh, I have all of this power, all of this forward energy that I can just get a nice contact with my reins, and I can just sort of guide her around. And if you do that on your horse and just do every other letter in your ring, right? And I don't think there were letters in your ring as I remember looking back in it, but you should have an idea of where they are. And if you don't, go pull up a dressage ring diagram on your phone and you'll see one. And just do transitions. Just do walk, trot, walk, trot, walk, trot, walk, trot, walk, trot until you're like, I can't possibly walk, trot anymore. And I am willing to bet that that connection, that softness, that good feeling where you feel like you could sit if you wanted to sit, but you don't have to, improves by 50% in one ride. That doesn't mean now that when you start the next time that you're going to be right where you left off. So some days I come out and Zelda is right there. She's with me. She's got it. She's on it. Some days I come out and she's not. And when she's not, I go back to the transitions and I just take my time and just know that this exercise is going to get it. Once I master it in the walk trot, then I do it in the trot canter. And I go trot canter. I usually do that on a circle and go canter nice and forward, back to trot, trot maybe a quarter to a half a circle, back up into canter. And the key here, guys, is I don't worry if they're perfect, because if I make myself feel like it has to be perfect, guess what I do? I pull on the reins, and then she doesn't want to go forward. So I just go to canter, and I let her just canter. If her head's straight in the air, I don't care. We just have to go off my leg. And I just repeat that transition until She decides she wants to go round, and she decides she wants to be perfect. And I just try to keep my hands, sorry, I'm too close to camera, try to keep my hands really consistent, right thumb to left ear, left thumb to right ear, and I just try to just keep that contact nice and soft and the same. But if she does this, I don't pull, I just push her forward, and then I come back to trot, and then I repeat it. And I repeat those transitions until she goes round and goes soft on her own, and I don't feel like I have to make it happen. So hopefully that all helps you. I would just sort of, you have to go out there now, and you have to believe.
Wow, he left us on quite the cliffhanger there. Hopefully he'll be right back. Oh, I think maybe.
Hello?
There we are.
Hello?
What does she have to
Okay.
believe? She has to
You
believe
have to
something.
believe me. You have to believe me that this is going to work, because you are going to do 6 or 8 of these and you'd be like, this is making no difference. And you just have to say, well, John said it's going to make it better, so I'm just going to stick with it. Just give me one day of doing just that, just doing transitions, not worrying about anything else. And if at the end of that day your horse isn't better, I'd be shocked. So just stick with it, try it for one day. That doesn't mean that then you're solved forever, but it gives you a tool that you can work through some of this stuff every time you ride.
Yeah, totally. And just my 2 cents. Blue is so freaking cute. And
Such a good
Gia,
keeper.
you're an amazing rider. So I can't believe you're 12.
I know.
You are awesome. So
I wish I read that well when I was 12.
Me too. I wish I could ride that well right now. Okay, next up we have Landy. Let me get her video going here for you. Slowly but surely, I'll get better at this. Okay. Landy is riding Palatial Decorum, and she's previously submitted a video review that your previous feedback, John, was very helpful and encouraging. Palatial Decorum goes in a light contact, and Landy is working on helping him become more confident and consistent in the connection. She has been focusing on transitions, including introducing walk to canter to encourage forwardness and responsiveness. And she notes that when he is truly forward and supple, he begins to come into the contact, but consistency is still a work in progress. And I lost John here, so I am going to wait for him to come back. And I'm going to pause the video. I'm actually going to go back a little bit so he doesn't miss anything. And I don't think that Landy wants my feedback, otherwise I would offer it. I don't have anything to say. Okay. Let's just hope John comes back here quickly, people. And that his computer didn't die. Okay, John said he's working on it, so he should be back here momentarily. Do we have you, John?
So terrible.
Oh, I can hear you.
Can you? Okay. Sorry,
I got
my
you.
internet is being terrible up here. I had to move rooms, and I don't know if I'm on the wrong booster or what, so I
No
apologize.
worries. Are you able to see and hear me okay now?
Yeah, I actually could hear and see you the whole time. You just couldn't hear or see me.
Well, minor details.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went back a little bit in the video, and then I'll just start
Yep.
where I think we dropped off.
Yep. That's about right.
Okay. Um, she has been focusing on transitions, including introducing walk to canter to encourage forwardness and responsiveness. She notes that when he is truly forward and supple, he begins to come into the contact, but consistency is still a work in progress. Based on prior feedback, she transitioned him from a full cheek French link to a Mullen mouth rubber bit. She currently borrowing a loose ring from her trainer and has a D ring on order, which she is looking forward to trying. She has already noticed he feels steadier in the rubber bit. This submission is over fences as she doesn't currently have a flat video, but she notes that he is a smaller horse and she is relatively tall, but she is committed to continuing to ride and compete with him. Her main question is around position. She tends to fall into a chair seat at times and wants tips on improving her position so she can better support him and avoid hindering his movement. She would also appreciate any additional feedback that you have.
Okay. So in general, I think this looks really nice. So let's just kind of break some of this stuff down. Right there, I think your position is actually pretty darn good. Now, as far as the hands go, they are nice. They create a good contact with your horse's mouth. I do remember this this combination from previously, I believe, and it looks so much happier and better. Occasionally, not all the time, but occasionally your hands get a little low. And so just watch that. Like when you feel like you need to push them together, the hands get a little bit low, and then that means that you're pulling down on the bars of your horse's mouth. Now, one thing we've talked about in the past is that when you're sitting on a horse, you want to feel like if you took the horse away, you would still be able to stand on your feet. So a way to practice that is without your horse, before you get on, do some air squats. Okay, so if you can squat down, then if you are too upright in your upper body, you're going to fall back onto your rump. Okay, so when you feel sometimes like maybe you're sitting in a little bit of a chair seat, that you don't notice it as much when you're riding the horse because obviously your horse can carry you, right? Your seat just sits down in the back of the saddle and it's not a big deal. But the fact that you're mentioning it is really good because it does tell me that you're paying attention to this stuff, which is I commend you for that. So practice that. Practice how can you do a squat and how much bend is in your knee. So previously I spoke about somebody that had stirrups that were possibly a little too short. These look pretty good, but you might play with your stirrup length a little bit and see if you shortened your stirrup one hole, would that help or not? They're not super long. It's not like you're in your dressage length stirrups, but occasionally I feel like your leg does get a touch out in front of you and a little loose, like swimming along the horse's side. So you might see if you went one hole shorter, would that help you? But I would really encourage you to do some air squats because I think then you'd start to get a feel for how much bend needs to be in your knee for how much of your upper body needs to be forward. So what I see in your ride is you're quite upright here. So when you get in front of the fence in your jump position, you tend to just tip back a little bit and then the lower leg sneaks out in front of you a little bit. So play around with it on the ground and see, right? I think in general, actually, your upper body needs to be a little bit more forward. You need a little bit of angle in your hip. Let's see if I can do this or not. I don't know if this is going to work. So, all right. Oh, this is going to work great. Okay. Get rid of my phone clip. So when you do, I've never done this before. When you do your jumping position, right, your show jump position, this is where you want to be. So you can see I have angle in my hip. And I'm standing on the ground here, so I've got good angle in my upper body. My heels, you can't see them, but are directly down underneath my seat here, like that. Because if they weren't, and they were out in front of me, I'd fall backwards, right? And so that, when you do your squat on your horse, your leg can get a little bit out in front of you, and you fall back into the saddle. When I do a squat and I'm not on a horse, I can't do that. If I don't want to fall over, as I go lower and my stirrups get shorter, my upper body has to come more forward, right? So practice that on the ground like this. But you can see as I'm in my dressage position, right? My dressage link stirrups, my upper body can be quite tall, okay? As I get into a shorter stirrup, and I'm in my jumping stirrup, now my upper body has to have angle to it, right? It has to have angle right here in my hip. My upper body comes forward as my stirrups get shorter. So show jump length, cross country length, dressage length, okay? You can practice that when you're not even on your horse, and that's going to give you a better feel for where you need to be with your upper body angle. I think what's happening to you is you're trying to be really good and really tall in your upper body, but you're doing it on a shorter stirrup. So we might play with that stirrup length. You might go up a hole, you might not. But I think the big piece is your upper body actually needs to be a little bit more forward. Then, when we watch that video, this is the next thing I want you to think about. The very last fence that you jumped, your horse got in there and got to what I would say was a deep distance. Now, the way it looked would be a distance that somebody could say, oh, well, the horse chipped, right? You missed your distance a little bit and your horse chipped. You did miss your distance a little bit and your horse did chip, but that could have just been a nice deep add distance if you had kept your upper body forward, sat down into the saddle, sat close to the saddle with your upper body forward, closed your legs and closed your reins to support that last stride, which was going to be a short stride. So basically you were coming into that fence 12-foot stride, 12-foot stride, 12-foot stride, 8-foot stride jump. And because in that 8-foot stride, you slipped the rein and got behind your horse because you weren't sure what was going to happen, understandable, safe place to be, but you slipped behind your horse and got in the back seat a little bit on a long rein. Your horse lost his balance, fell on his head, chipped in an 8-foot stride, and then jumped out, and he was a good boy, and you were fine. You left it up. It didn't matter, except that it did matter because it starts chipping away a little bit at their confidence. So the difference between a chip and an add is that a chip is your horse is not balanced, you are not balanced, you are not connected in that last stride. If you think about, if you were doing flat work, right? You're doing dressage. I say flat work because I never know, is it dressage or is it dressage? I can never decide. I switch back and forth. But you were doing flat work. You were cantering along. And I said to you, you're on 12-foot canter. Now you must be on an 8-foot canter right now. Would you drop the reins and fall back or lean forward? Or would you close your leg and take a hold of the reins and take a hold of the bridle and say 8-foot stride? I'm willing to bet it would be the second option, right? You would close your leg, you would squeeze the reins, and you'd say, we have to do an 8-foot stride right now, John said so, and you'd jump up and down in the saddle, and you'd add energy, and you'd have more in your hand, you'd have more in your leg. But for all of us, we see that short distance, whether it's an 8-foot stride or a 10-foot stride or whatever. Cross country, it could be that we're on a 17-foot stride and we're just trying to put a 12-foot stride in, but we're changing that balance and compressing it. And whenever that happens to a jump, not whenever, but very often we panic and we drop the rein and go, oh, take care of it yourself, horsey. And that's really the moment when we need to be there for them and we need to be connected and we need to have our leg and our rein in that last stride. And then, yeah, for sure you need to soften when your horse jumps. But I think you actually did that a little bit early. So that would be one other thing that I just would think about is you want to have in the last stride before your horse takes off, you want to have your seat in the saddle, you want to have your leg on, you want to have a contact with the reins. You don't want to just let go of the reins in that last stride, or that's the other thing that we all hear people say and don't really understand, is you drop them. So you did drop them a little bit there, and you dropped them a little bit there to a chipping distance, but it wasn't a bad distance. It could have worked out just fine. You're just trying so hard to be good and not catch your horse in the face, which is commendable and absolutely what you should do. And you've been well taught and you ride great and you're a sympathetic person, which is what it takes to be a good horseman or woman. But really in that last stride before they take off, you want to be a little more connected, a little more with your horse so that you can help him stay balanced right to the point of takeoff.
Amazing. 10 out of 10 demonstration, John. That was really fantastic.
Perfect.
And your squat form
glad it worked.
was perfect. Very impressive.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. And Victoria and Gia are both in chat, and they're both saying thank you, and they're excited to work on your feedback. So
Awesome.
really killing it this evening. Our last up here is Katie. So let's, I don't know, did we just lose John again? I'll get the screen going. Well, oh, we didn't lose him. Just one more John's internet. You can do it. We
I
believe in
promise
you.
I have a box now in the way, and I don't want to hit it because I'm afraid it's going to turn this off.
Oh no. Wait, can you, I'm guessing you need a second.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Take your time. No stress.
I think I have to hit the refresh button because it won't go away.
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay, I'm going to hit refresh, and if I go away,
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'll be back.
Okay. For anyone who's stuck with us this far, you're a champ.
Okay,
You with us?
I'm with you.
Okay. We got one more. We got Katie, last but not least. Okay, Katie is riding Charm, a 13-year-old thoroughbred gelding who raced for 9 years before retiring a few years ago. She's been working with him for about a year and a half to help him develop new muscles and ways of moving. She describes him as having a great brain and being very willing, but he tends to carry stiffness, especially during the first few rides each week. While he usually softens more than shown in this video, he was particularly distracted during this ride due to one of her dogs barking nearby. She noted that this was actually helpful to include as it reflects how he can feel when traveling. She has been working on improving his focus and helping him soften more consistently as they prepare to begin showing dressage this year. This video was recorded recently using one of John's lessons, 157 bending and stretching for a stiff horse. She included clips of the areas she feels are most challenging, specifically leg yields and serpentines. She's looking forward to John's feedback.
All right. Well, I'm excited that you were using one of the lessons. That's pretty cool. And I think, look, it is fair enough if there's a dog barking and that's going to be distracted and you're on a distractible horse, that sometimes will happen. So the thing that I really appreciate here is, although, yes, he is stiff and he is, sort of sticking his head up in the air at times, I don't see you as a rider tugging and pulling and cranking down on him and trying to make him round. It is so much about the horse trusting the rider's hands. Like, I hear so many times, the people are like, oh, this horse just won't take my hand. It won't go into the contact, whether that's because they're too heavy or they're too light. And the thing I always try to say to them is, like, well, you have to give them a hand that they trust for them to trust it. And I see you working towards that here, right? Like, this would be a moment where a lot of people right here, as we're trotting this circle, would start tugging and pulling and cranking and saying, you've got to put your head down or throw them in draw reins. And I don't see you doing that, which is really commendable, and long term is going to be a really good thing a really helpful thing long term for your horse to trust you. So that said, I think one thing that you could work on here to help with all of this is spiraling in, spiraling out, smaller circles, creating, the idea of those leg yields in that lesson is to get your horse to move laterally more supple off of your inside leg. You might play around with bits and see, is there something that he's a little happier to take? And a lot of times that is not what you go in there thinking. So, like, if he's in a single joint snaffle, you obviously could try a double joint snaffle. You could try a mullen mouth. You could try a different single joint snaffle. You could try different sides. If a horse gets a little bit wooden or stiff like this, I tend to usually put them in some kind of a loose ring bit, because that creates a little softness through their jaw and their poll sometimes that will help you. So I just play around a little bit with bits as well to see, is there something he's be a little bit more comfortable in. But that said, I think he, like you're sort of alluding to, he probably is just a naturally stiff, nervous horse. And I say nervous only because you were mentioning the dogs barking, so I'm assuming that is a part of this. The other thing you might do is, especially if you're on him on a day where you know there's things outside that are going to be distracting him, is kind of put him, that's beautiful there, put him on a circle and kind of live on the circle for a little bit until you feel like you've got that contact and that connection. And then once you feel like you've got it, then you can take that out around the arena, and you might, say like, okay, I'm going to do alongside, and then you might lose it by the end of the long side and then get it back again at the far end of the ring on another circle down there. Now, one thing I'm hoping, and I'm not sure, sorry, remind me her name again, Kinsey? Sorry.
Katie.
Katie. So one thing I'm hoping is that Katie either is here or can tell us in the Facebook group over the next day or so. At the end of that video, it all looked like it started coming together, right? Like you rode through this lesson with this brilliant ride IQ instructor, and by the end of the lesson, your horse actually started looking like, oh, okay, I'll come round, I'll come through, I'll use my back, and then the video stopped. I'm hoping the video stopped because you were like, I did it. This guy is a genius, and he helped me through this, and look at how amazing I am now by the end. So I'd be interested to know, is that what happened and you actually, this stuff all worked? Or was that just like a moment and then it went rigid and stiff again? Because if it worked, then that's a lesson and a bunch of exercises that I would probably continue to do. And then I would say your patience paid off, right? By the end of that ride, your horse was soft. But let's be honest here, if that was just a moment and then it went back to him being stiff and rigid, then that guy who was helping you through the lesson doesn't know what he's talking about because it didn't work, right? So you have to sort of feel your way through it. Did it help by the end or did it not, right? I put these lessons, all of us, all of the Ride IQ instructors, we've got a bunch of us here, we put these lessons out, and there's lots of different ones because some of them work better for certain horses than others. So if that at the end carried through for a little while, then this is a really helpful lesson for you. If it didn't, and you felt like, yeah, that was just 10 seconds, John, and I stopped the video, so stop patting yourself on the back, then go find another one and see if there's another one that maybe helps. That doesn't mean this wouldn't work another time, in another month or two, but it needs to produce at least some results for you by the end of the ride, which it looks like it did. So that's like right there, starting to show that, okay, this is starting to work. This is starting to come together. These leg yields are tough. But after you finish this leg yield and you go through the end of the ring, then suddenly, oh, he starts looking a little bit more like a proper horse down there. So I think I'm hoping that the case is, and I'm kind of excited to hear that the case is that really did help, because then what we preach here all the time is be patient and let the exercises help you through it, and don't panic and feel like you have to tug and pull. Suddenly it looks like it's really starting to help. So I think good job by you sort of working your way through the lesson and not panicking about it and thinking I have to crank this horse's head down, because that's not going to work anyway. I remember taking a lesson years and years ago on a preliminary horse, and it was with David O'Connor actually, and he said to me, you're just getting a little wide with your hand and you're moving the bit in your horse's mouth too much. And yeah, your horse is getting round, but the problem is if you keep doing that, then one day you're going to be doing that down center line at Kentucky, because that's going to become a habit. It's become something that you have to do with that particular horse all the time. So being patient here like you are, yeah, it might take you a little longer in the short term, right, to get this to where you want it to be. But in the long term, it's going to be a much easier horse to ride, because you're not going to have to fidget, fiddle, and mess around with the bit to get your horse to go round. You're just going to have your leg on. You're going to ride through these exercises. You're going to push him to be laterally supple. And then, boom, right there. Look at that. That's really good. And then it starts to come together, because you're a really good rider, and that's a nice horse, and you did a really good job here. Well done.
And you have an amazing coach in your ear.
Yeah, right.
I love it. Katie, well, I am on the edge of my seat waiting to hear if that end of that lesson was as good as it looks, because it looks great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Jon, thank you for doing this and for sharing your expertise. As always, you are so wonderful at providing actionable and helpful feedback for people. So, everybody who submitted your videos, thank you so much for doing so. And also, we can't wait to hear about how things are going as you work and implement some of these exercises that Jon recommended.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And I think I said it last time. I try to say it every time. Like, I appreciate you guys putting yourselves out there and submitting the videos. That actually takes a lot of courage to be like, yeah, let's let the world see me ride and work through some things. It's so helpful, hopefully for you, but it's really helpful for all of us to get to watch it. And honestly, it helps me too. I'm going to teach a clinic this weekend, and so being able to work on being able to communicate and see how these things help you guys, it helps me. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, seems like a win-win-win all
A
around. Well,
win-win-win.
yeah.
Winner, winner.
Awesome. Well, Jon, thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Go give Kaden and Jen a hug for us.
I will. And I'll be
And
patient.
yes, and thank them for being patient. And in a matter of weeks here, we'll be rooting for you.
I hope so. Thanks, guys.